Good morning. Today is the 26th day of Shvat and the 17th day of February. Look at that. And we're finishing up today, regardless of whether we do or not. We're finishing the Maimer from the year 1887 from the Rebbe Rashab, entitled Vayishma Yitro, and Yitro heard. And this was actually the Maimer we started 8 or 9 days ago. Okay, and we're on page 79. V'shoresh u'makor lekol zeh. Sorry, I skipped a tiny bit. We said that the chokhmah from the side of holiness, it connects things. But the chokhmah from the side of tumah, from the impurity, it separates things. What do we mean? So here he explains that Jethro was called the priest of Midian because Midian literally means quarrel. Madonu meriva. So it means to quarrel. And he explains like this. V'atamhu, fifth line in the middle. V'atamhu. דחוכמה דקדושה הוא בחינת ביטול, ולכן החוכמה מייחד ומחבר את כל ההפכים. Because the wisdom of holiness is related with self-nullification, or nullification in general. Therefore, the wisdom connects everything, because when two people nullify one another, nullify themselves, they can connect. When the self is gone, the self separates between them, then they can connect. And so he says, the source of the wisdom of holiness is in the element of water. Water connects things together. But when it comes to the wisdom that comes from the impure side, it increases the feeling of self. And the person is wise in his own eyes. He feels something. He aggrandizes himself. That is what we call pride. He has pride in his achievements. When it comes to Torah, the person doesn't have pride in his achievements. Of course, you could learn Torah and also have pride in your achievements, but that means that you're not learning it from the side of holiness. And about that, the sages say that the Torah becomes like a poison to him. So the Torah is supposed to, it naturally is it is more connected to water. Torah is likened to water. And therefore, it makes things stick together. So the whole point of Torah, for instance, is to create a book like the Talmud, where all the opinions come together. Everybody sits around the same table. Whereas, when it comes to science, every person writes his own theory. And they're separate. And you don't find a book that debates them between them and brings them all under the same chair. Most importantly, there is no shul. There is no place of worship where they all come together regardless of their opinions. And they come together to do something together. They don't just sit there and debate, right? When you were praying together, so we're all nullified equally. We're all the same. וזה גורם לו הגבהה וההתנשאות בחינת יש, וממילא ירבה הפירוט, ולכן נקרא צכלות לכל גיא שוטה. And because he feels wise in his own eyes, the person who is engaging in the worldly wisdoms, whose source is in the impurity, he feels that he is important, and he feels pride. And therefore, there's more and more dissension and more separation between the different players. And again, the source of all this is the wisdom from the side of impurity. And like the mundane wisdoms, they separate things from one another, because that's how the mundane wisdoms are taught, each person to himself. And I want to say that it's deeper than that the laws of nature, even just studying the laws of nature, by definition they separate. Of course there are laws that also connect, but the first assumption is that things are distinct from one another. And then you try to connect them together with laws that govern their actions. But in principle, the first thing that we have is a separation between the different objects, the separation between the different people, and so on. And this is explained in the beginning of the Tanya, וגם גורם ריבוי הפירוט והמדון, and therefore it causes strife and quarrel, וזהו עניין הגאווה, and this is the pride. ויש לומר הגאווה מיסוד האש, and as he says in the beginning of the Tanya, pride comes from the element of fire. So we have here fire versus water, that the impurity is likened to fire in this case, and the wisdom that is from the purity, from the pure side, the good side, is likened to water. And fire consumes and it separates things, unlike water. Just as the holy wisdom that's in a person's mind, which causes self-nullification. Again, why is it self-nullification? Because in the end, everything is, there's a conscious understanding that everything is underneath God. It's enough to hear. I yesterday listened to a debate between Rabbi Sachs and Richard Dawkins. So I'm not very impressed by the intellectual arguments here or there, and I don't think Rabbi Sachs was very much either, even though I don't like his direction, but it doesn't matter. But he hit upon the most important point, which was, and he didn't say it, but it's too bad that he didn't say it. In the end, he tried to explain that the overriding purpose of creation comes from the Creator, and it's an act of love, which is very nice. We here talked about that God wants to be known, which is a completely different purpose in creation. And because of that, every person wants to fulfill himself. But if the creation is an act of love, so therefore it means that the ultimate purpose of all of humanity is to reach love, is to reach connection. By Richard Dawkins, that can't exist, because there is no overriding principle of reality, because there is no God. Right? He assumes, first of all, he says, well, he doesn't assume. He says, you assume that there's God. I don't assume. Therefore, mine is more simple. My argument is simpler, and the burden of proof is upon you. But what he comes out of that with is that there is no ultimate purpose. There's no ultimate anything, because when you don't have God, it's not just purpose that's gone. It's any kind of unifying principle is gone also. It's interesting that Sachs didn't even mention to him. But in any case, what you have...
Who is Dawkins?
Richard Dawkins is the horseman, one of as they used to call them, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. That's the term that the Christians coined for them, because there were four people who were very instrumental in promoting atheism in the 90s and 2000s. In any case, so there's no overriding principle. So whereas wisdom of holiness, what it does is it brings everything together, because overriding everything is always that I'm before God. So there's always self-nullification there. So even if I don't agree with someone, and we fight very deeply, and we argue very deeply about what the Torah is saying, but in the end, we're all under Hashem. We're all under God. And when that unifying principle is gone, the person cannot beget in himself good character traits. Because good character traits, all of them start with self-nullification. And Richard Dawkins' argument, where it goes, is that I need to promote character traits that will keep me separate from others and at odds with others, because there is no unifying principle. There's no reason for us to unify. And really where that leads to, unless you make some kind of strange argument, which in the end can always be shown to be wrong, that it's better not to fight than it is to fight, but that's obviously not true, because if you believe in evolution, so obviously you believe in survival of the fittest, you believe that there has to be a struggle, and so there's no end to the struggle. But when it comes to Torah, of course there is an end to the struggle. The moment that everybody accepts that even though we have separate opinions and different bodies and so on and so forth, and different interests and all that, in the end, we're all under one Hashem, one God. The impurity brings about all the negative character traits, like we just said, like anger and pride and how do you say kina? Jealousy, v'ta'ava, and cravings, v'kavod, and honor, which take a person out of the world, which destroy his world. Kulam hen mitzada yeshut. They all come from the feeling of separate self. That's where they all come from. And therefore we find that if a person is only connected to the wisdom that's from the impurity, that is the source of the mundane laws of nature, then he is completely separate. God forbid. That's why, going back to Hanukkah for a moment, that the Greeks made impure all the oils, all the different oils, not just one oil. All the oils, all the wisdoms in the world were made impure, not just ours. Because when the source of everything, when everyone acknowledges, and in the end the Torah is the source of everything, how? We don't tell the scientists what to do. We tell them, you first of all have to believe that there's a unifying principle. You have to believe that we're all under the same God. If you don't believe that, then the thing you're going to work on in the lab is going to be used to kill other people in the end. That's how it works. If you don't have that faith, if you don't have that essential belief, then this will be the source of struggle. This will be the source of strife. So the stronger that the external mundane wisdoms become without a connection to the Torah, the more they rebel against God. So the purpose of Torah is to inform, is to be like a all-encompassing principle that every person who engages in wisdom, mundane or not, subscribes to first of all. וכשגברו מלכות בית חשמונאי עליהם וניצחום התקינו נר חנוכה שהוא עניין ותורה אור, בחינת מקור התורה להאיר גם החושך. And so when the Hashmonaim, when the Maccabees were able to win against the Greeks, the Greeks there is not the Greeks, of course, it's the Hellenists, and we talked a lot about this. So what they did was they instituted the lights of Hanukkah, which symbolize the light of Torah, Torah Or. And the purpose of Torah Or is to take the darkness and to turn it into light. לנהורה, כמו שמבואר במקום אחר. ולכן על ידי שאמר יתרו אתה ידעתי כגדול השם מכל אלוקים. So now that the master of all the external wisdoms, all the mundane wisdoms in his generation, Jethro, comes and says, I now know that Havayah, God, is above every other force in reality. That was his statement of conversion. You have to put this over every university. It's like, we convert this university to be under God. How? You quote this from Jethro. That has to be that quote at the entrance to every university in the world. And the wisdom of Tuma, of impurity, was now converted to holiness. Very simple, it's the same wisdom still. But now it's operating under the guise that Havayah, God who is one, Hashem Elokechem, Hashem Echad, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, He is above also all the wisdom in this place. So all the wisdom we have here, all the mundane wisdom we develop in this university is meant and done under the auspices of the Torah, and it means that everything we do is unified. Everything is under one God, and its purpose is to bring peace to the world, to bring, like you said, love to the world. And so now the wisdom that leads to light is now stronger and greater than the wisdom of the husk, of the impure husk. And what this caused, like we said, is a drawing down. So now it opened up what we call the concealed wisdom. What was the concealed wisdom? We said that's what we did yesterday. That there is the concealed wisdom and there's the revealed wisdom. The revealed wisdom, right, what was that? We said that's novlot chokhmah. That is the low-hanging fruit of wisdom. And that's the low-hanging fruit that made possible the Torah in the sense of halacha that we have. That the Torah can enter into mundane aspects of life and guide them. And say, this is how you plow your field. And this is how you don't plow your field. And so on. The ability of the Torah to become practical, that's called the low-hanging fruit of wisdom. But once the impurity acknowledges that Havayah is greater, that God, the unifying principle of the universe, is greater than everything that we do, then the concealed wisdom, which we called the hidden wisdom, ta'alumot chokhmah, right? The mysteries of wisdom, which is the source of the Torah, it can open up and begin to be drawn down. Why? Because we have this principle that we talked about many times, that b'itaruta diltata itaruta delela. When there's awakening from below, there can be an awakening from above. V'zeu yitro. That's why he was called Jethro. That's why they added the vav to his name. Shehimshich b'chinat yitron b'chinat chokhmah ilah. The yitron chokhmah u'min hasichlut dafka. Because he allowed this to happen, for the concealed wisdom to come down. So there's something new that came down even into the Torah thanks to his conversion. And so he added into the Torah the whole dimension, the whole inner dimension of wisdom. So what does this mean? That before the Torah could be given, first of all, there had to be a revelation of the concealed wisdom at a level that had not been until now. Of course, there were other people who did this, but they hadn't done it as much as Jethro had, who was the master of, he was the Isaac Newton of his time. He was the Einstein of his time. But now he says a cautionary sentence. Not every person can come and tackle mundane wisdom, meaning physics and biology and chemistry and all the other mundane wisdoms that they are, and make them holy. That's why King Solomon said, "V'ra'iti ani ki yitron ha'or min ha'choshech, v'yitron ha'chokhmah min ha'sichlut." That's why Solomon had to say, I saw that there is something that's added into the wisdom if I convert the mundane knowledge, the mundane wisdom. I saw. V'ra'iti ani. The dafka Shlomo shaya gavoa b'ma'ala, כמו שכתוב, ותרב חוכמת שלמה, because it was specifically he who had received the gift from God. Well, how do we know that he received this gift? Because that was his biggest revelation when in Givon, as he was 7 years old only. He was 12 years old when he became king. The first thing he did was he went to Givon and he prayed there and he brought many sacrifices. And at night when he slept, God revealed himself to him and he asked, "What do you want?" And he didn't ask for money and he didn't ask for wealth and for power, for anything like that. He asked for wisdom. And God said in the dream, this is all in the book of Kings in the beginning, that because you asked for wisdom, I'll give you all the others also. But then he became the wisest of all men. What was his wisdom? That he was also able to convert the mundane wisdom in the world. And in that dream, God gave him the lower wisdoms, the mundane wisdoms, as a gift. So it wasn't just that he went to university and he learned. And by the way, this is something very interesting. The Rebbe, everybody says he went to university, but he didn't go to university. It's nonsense. He was in what we call an occupational college, and he studied ship engineering. That's all, and electrical engineering also. Those were two things he studied, and he only had a bachelor's. How did he have all the other? How did he know math at the level that he knew? And I used to doubt this until I saw some things, some letters that showed me that his understanding of physics, of relativity, was much greater than anybody else in that generation. He could see through the debate between, most people don't even know what's going on, between Einstein and, now I forget the Frenchman's name. But Dirac was his mathematician, but now I forgot his name. He died early, which is why his version of relativity was never accepted, was not developed as much. But today, 80, 90 years later, they're coming back full circle to see that there's a lot of merit to what he did, and there's things that are now changing about the whole understanding of what's called the ether. Because the first thing that Einstein did was he rejected the ether. We're not going to get into that. But it's a high level of understanding mathematics. Where did he get this from? It's a present. It's a gift from above. It's not because he went to university to study it. He had the ability from himself. And therefore, this was the reason for the giving of the Torah. Because the whole purpose of giving the Torah was in order to allow the Torah to enclose itself in physical objects, so that we can keep Shabbos, that we know if this is Tameh, this is Tahor, this is pure, this is impure, and so on. It's the ability of the Torah to come down and regulate normal physical life. And specifically what allowed the Torah to do that was that the concealed wisdom was now revealed, and it pushed the Torah down further. What are we saying? That there was Torah also in the time of the patriarchs. They also had Torah, but they could not regulate normal reality. It couldn't become halacha. It couldn't become a law. What it was a spiritual principle. Many spiritual principles that they kept. We even say they kept all the principles, all 613 commandments. How did they keep all 613 commandments? Not in physical, in spiritual ways. They understood all these principles. But to bring it down, to enter into the physical, to say, this spiritual principle, the way it appears in the matter at Mount Sinai, that could only happen when the concealed wisdom was revealed and pushed the low-hanging fruit down into reality. וזהו שעל ידי הודעת יתרו, הרי נעשה יתרון אור שנמשך מבחינת חוכמה סתימה, דאצילות והוא הנותן כוח שנמשך התורה למטה, וזהו דלאחר שנתגר נקרא יתרו בוו, דוו הוא בחינת התורה. So he says, why did they add the letter vav? Because the vav represents the Torah itself. How do we see? For instance, that the luchos, the tablets, were 6 by 6 by 6, and many other things that is connected to this, and specifically that it was given on the 6th of Sivan, and many things that the Torah is related to 6. But the most important thing is here that the letter vav represents the drawing down. It's like a conduit that you bring down, and so by revealing the concealed wisdom through his act of converting himself, and again, it's a conversion of his wisdom, that allowed the concealed wisdom to be drawn down and make the Torah into something practical that normalizes human life in the very physical, mundane sense. And we're finished with this mimer, even though we have a few lines left, but they're homework. You have to leave something. And next week we'll start something new. Bezrat Hashem. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.